Well, hello and welcome to Growing Deeper Daily with Gateway Church. I'm Pastor Michael. Let's get right into God's Word together today. I want to share with you from a passage that I shared with our church last night at our prayer meeting. We had a prayer meeting to start off this new ministry and academic year, as well as we think of the various needs and challenges in our individual lives, in our families, in our nation, and in our world. And as God's people, we gathered last night to seek God's throne together, to intercede. I loved praying with one of the saints last night who told me, I'm an intercessor. I love praying on behalf of the needs of others before the very throne of God. It was an amazing time of prayer that we had last night. And I shared with our community, our group that was gathered together last night in our Academy Chapel, I shared with them from a passage in Acts chapter 12. It's a text that I always think of when it comes to prayer meetings. It comes early on in the life of the church. James has just been killed in Jerusalem, and Peter is in prison. It's a time where the earliest followers of Jesus, these apostles and earliest disciples, are still setting themselves apart from the religious systems of their day, uniquely so because of their allegiance to and obedience to Jesus. And so Peter finds himself at the hands of Herod in a prison, no doubt awaiting his own death. And so the church gets to praying. I mean, isn't that what we do? When things get tough, we go before the Lord and we get on our knees. What are you going before God's throne with today? What prayer is on your heart? What breakthrough do you need? Perhaps you are praying like these early saints were here in Acts 12 for the release and the protection of one that you know has been standing up for what is right as a result of following Jesus. We think of those across the world right now. Afghanistan especially right now comes to mind, that men and women might be protected for standing up for Christ. Paul, we see later on, Paul, various times when he was in prison, the church would intercede on behalf of him. And so what are you going before God's throne for today? What great need? Is it because of persecution, or is it something else in your life? We know miraculously God frees Peter. Peter is not executed. He's not in prison very long, but because of the work of this angel, he's released. And so now the scene is the people of God, the apostles, the disciples, the leaders, they are praying for Peter. They're praying for their church. They're praying for God's will and power to manifest itself. And now Peter, the physical embodiment of his answered prayer, shows up. And listen what happens here in verse 13. He knocked at the door of the outer gate, and a servant named Rhoda came to answer him. She recognized Peter's voice, and because of her joy, she did not open the gate, but ran in and announced that Peter was standing at the outer gate. Okay, Peter shows up. He's knocking at the gate. Rhoda hears his voice and doesn't even remember to open the gate to let him in. She's so excited for answered prayer that she runs back to tell the leaders, the apostles and others who had gathered to worship and to pray, that Peter is free. I mean, can you imagine the joy on her face? That's the kind of expectation and prayer we ought to have, right? I want us to pray like Rhoda today, anticipating and looking forward to the way God is going to come through in your life and to answer, believing that he can, believing that he will. But listen to the response of those who hear her message. This is what they say in verse 15. You're out of your mind. I love it. But she kept insisting it was true. And they said, it's his angel. But Peter kept knocking, and when they opened the door, they saw him and were amazed. You're out of your mind, Rhoda. Peter's in prison. You probably saw his angel. What's going on here is in the first century, there was a tradition that when someone died, their guardian angel, this was in the Jewish tradition, that guardian angel would manifest itself, perhaps guiding that soul to protection in the other life to come. So literally what they are saying is, we believe it is more probable that Peter died and our prayers were not answered than that you actually saw the answered prayer come to fruition. It's more probable in their life that Peter has died and she's seen the angel than the truth that Peter has been miraculously released. You're out of your mind. You might have saw an angel. Have you ever sought after God in prayer, but when you started from the very beginning, you thought, Lord, this is an impossible situation. We'll see what happens. Or you prayed something knowing you should pray for deliverance for your family member, knowing that you should pray for this miracle to happen, and then, God, maybe it will. We're to pray like Rhoda, expecting and listening for God to answer, and to have faith that he will. Now listen, does God always answer prayer the way we want? No. Does he always do it in the time frame that we want? No. Does God always give us the exact thing that we think we need in the moment? No. We understand that. But it's not our job to play the role of God. It's our job to play the role of the human seeking the will and the help of the Father. Go before God today expecting, believing, trusting that he could answer that prayer. And he will in his time and in his way. You may not even see it in your lifetime, the way that he'll answer the request that you bring before his very throne. Come to the Lord today with whatever your need is, and be a Rhoda. Get ready to just celebrate with great joy the way God could work, and trust him that he'll do it. He'll do it in your life. I'm praying for us as a church. I'm praying for you individually. I'm praying for our families. There are so many challenges and needs right now. I'm praying for our witness in this community. I'm praying for the global church. We spent a lot of time last night praying for the global church and the witness of God across the world. Let's go before God today, believing and trusting, knocking at that gate, getting ready to hear the answer to the prayers that we bring before him. Well, God bless you. Keep seeking him and knocking today. We'll see you soon.